Life is sweet. Let it sweep you off your feet.
Allie and find your joy. Wait, I have to remember this. I'm going to really try every time. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Okay.
Click below.
And click below. And today, oh my gosh, I'm getting to visit a little bit again with the fabulous Melanie Went. And Melanie does many things. She is part of Power and Aging. And one of the things that she does is I'm gonna try to describe this as best I can. Health and wellness promoter and guide, and she offers options and solutions to her clients. How's that? Does that describe
That
it?
sounds great. Yeah, I like to advocate for them to empower themselves.
Oh, that's awesome. That's going to get really long on the business card. But
It is probably, yeah, probably an acronym somehow.
that's right. I was just thinking about that. I was trying to think how that might work. But
Yeah.
anyways, that's awesome. Welcome and thanks so much for
Thank
coming.
you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So I was thinking, like, so part of this when you're offering options, and there's like, what kind of, let's start there. What kind of options? And maybe that's a bigger question, but what kind of options are you offering people? Like, what might that look like?
So in Power and Aging, we have a membership. So we offer different health modules within the membership.
Right.
And right now I'm only focusing on Power and Aging. So you can only get me there.
Okay.
But you have me twice a month personally for your own personal coaching calls, one with a group, one depending on who shows up. And then there's lots of tips and tools and me within the modules themselves that are pre-recorded. But I do, like, my history, I was going through to be a vet originally, and then I decided it wasn't the right course, but I was already doing my biology degree, so I have that. And then I've done lots of detoxing general courses, liver detoxing, blood sugar regulation courses, gut microbiome, nutritional endocrinology, functional blood chemistry analysis. So different things that sort of make up my thoughts on things. But one of the main ones, to be honest, like, I did a lot of scientific stuff throughout my historically anyway. But what I really like to focus on now, it's come sort of full spectrum, because I did a little bit of this when I was younger, is I've always been interested in other cultures and how they do things. So how they get well, how they stay well, and historically what we've done, even in North America or wherever people came from to North America, if they're not Indigenous. And I love the Indigenous stuff too. Like, anything that, I love hearing about how the old ways were, because I think there's so much value in that. And I think that we have completely lost a lot of that. And I'm hoping it's coming around again, but that sort of super inspires me. That's really where my interests lie. So really getting back to simplicity, really, because I think health can be so complex, the body, the scientific side of it, but that breaks it into components. And I think that a lot is lost when we're compartmentalizing our health. Right. And I think that we are a whole functional being that all works in a harmonious way. And I think that's what we have to get back to. That makes sense?
Yeah, well, it makes it makes perfect sense to me. That's okay. We can have dogs a little bit. Everybody hears my dog from time to time. That's okay. So when we're looking at holistically and us as a whole being, what are some of the ways that you address that?
Well, again, we have to look at what's happening in our lives, right? It might be a specific thing that's very acute. So it could have been that a big trauma happened. Right. Could be that you're really stressed about that trauma or about something else in your life, right? Could be finances. It could be relationships. It could be, so we explore all those in our membership individually as things, because they all come together to form the fabric of our lives, right? So everything is important. You have to look at all of the aspects of it. I look at, what are you eating? What is your family history? What is your family, not just the biological history and the complications they may have had, quote unquote, genetically, which is a whole other discussion. we look at the way or the patterns that your family has lived and what you might have picked up and the bad habits you might be carrying from the patterns that they do, instead of using good things that'll help your body. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, because I think that when we look at how things play out for us genetically,
Yeah.
sometimes I think from what you're saying, our genetics sometimes are our habits that we've picked up, right? So sometimes someone will say your genetics are this certain way, but if everybody in my family ate a certain way and exercised or did not exercise a certain way, then it might appear to be a genetic thing from the outside.
It's influenced your genetics, perhaps.
Right,
so you might, so
okay.
in genetically speaking, people say, oh, well, my sister, my aunt, and my mother all had breast cancer, so
Right.
I'm probably going to get breast cancer too. First of all, that's a mindset. So you're calling that energy, et cetera, towards you if you're thinking that way. Secondly, that's not true, because you might have a genetic disposition in some small way, but your environment and what you do with your stress, with your eating, with your moving, with your breathing, with your exercise, with your sleep, all of these things, your nutrition, that's going to influence your genetics, right? So you don't have to express that possible gene variation that might be predisposed for that. That doesn't have to express in you. So you have to think about it as a whole, right? There's so many different things that play into that. But if you're just focused on, breast cancer,
Right.
that's a problem, right? That's where the problem lies. And if you aren't changing your habits from what your family has done traditionally over time, and the way they eat and the way they maybe don't move, or the way they're doing things that might not be benefiting them, that's where the expression could come in.
Wow. So that, of course, I love that because it gives us options.
Oh, yes.
Because when when you look at things that might be a predisposition in our family, that gives me the option that I can make a choice to shift what I'm doing. I've actually recently, I'm working with someone, we did my DNA, found out all that, and then we're working at shifting that, whatever I have a predisposition. So I like those things because it makes me because it gets me control a bit.
Absolutely.
I don't want to just be a victim to,
Absolutely.
the thought of that is
That's exactly the word for it. Is that we start to become a victim. Same with giving away our power to a doctor. In my opinion, you sure don't do with anything without a doctor's consent, because I have to say that. But from my personal opinion, what I do is I am my doctor, because I'm the only one here 24 hours a day. I know what's happening in my body. I know what I did. I know what I ate. I know how stressed I was. I know that I didn't sleep properly. I know whatever good or bad is happening. I know that pattern. So if you start to notice these things, if you start to maybe journal them, so you have an idea, okay, well, this was happening. Oh, my stomach was not digesting well. What happened the 4 hours before, right? What did I eat? What was I thinking? How did I eat? What were the things that started that? Could be what you ate, could be that you're just not digesting it properly because you did it on the go, because maybe you needed some more hypochlorous acid for the digestion purposes itself, maybe some enzymes, maybe you didn't chew properly, maybe, like, there's so many variations that it can be, and you're the only one who knows exactly what happened, right? We love to give that power away to generally to an allopathic doctor, but that doctor has 5 minutes with us. They don't get to ask us all these questions. They might be in it for the right reasons, but they don't have the time to give to each client. So you have to advocate for yourself and know what's happening in your own body. That's what I think is important for people to really understand, because the body, fascinating. It's such an incredible piece of machinery, if you want to call it a machine, which I don't, but it's astounding. When you break each separate thing that's happening in the body apart, it's fascinating. It's unbelievable, right? So really, really complicated, but at the same time, so basic. If we're doing basic things, we have to step away from the scientific side of it, I think, and get back to basics, because that's where we thrive and we can properly nourish our souls. So
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I think that sometimes in North American culture, I think it was, you were talking about culturally, in a lot of non-Indigenous North American culture, we've intentionally or not, we've been trained to sort of give up that power a bit, right?
exactly.
We're
And
gonna,
it's easier. Some people just like that. They don't have to think about it anymore. It's not in their control. Some people like to give that control away, right? But it's not beneficial for us.
no, at minimum, I mean, hey, if I like to be involved very much with my own health.
Good.
When my gallbladder ruptured, I wanted to go to a hospital. So I get it. Like there's times that allopathic medicine for acute care,
Exactly.
they rock it.
They do. They rock it for sure.
They rock acute care. In terms of ongoing care.
That's you. Yeah.
So
you have to be responsible for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, every little step that you take today, like you think, oh, I'm just going to have another ice cream, or I'm going to treat myself to this and this and this. We always think, oh, it's treating myself, right? We just have to reframe that, because are we really treating ourselves? Do you know what's in that? Is it ice cream made of just cream and maybe a cherries or whatever the flavor is? Or if you read the ingredients, is it like 7 other things you can't pronounce and it's a chemical? It's not really something you want to be putting in your body, right? So go back to basics. If you want ice cream, a challenge I had last September, I think, was for the month of September, I wanted people to only ingest what they made. So again, it means going back to basics. So what we did was you were allowed to eat anything you wanted, but you had to make it. So if you wanted ice cream, you had to go to the store, buy the cream, buy the sweetener, whatever it was, buy the cherries or the whatever you want. And it had to be whole. You can't buy Oreo cookies for the ice cream to make Oreo cookie ice cream, because you didn't make those Oreos.
Right.
So I'm telling you, you don't have to milk the cow for the cream. That's allowing. But if you want ice cream, you make it. If you want a cookie, it's from scratch. It's not Pillsbury Doughboy that you're cutting and throwing in the oven. So if you want it badly enough, then you'll go through the steps of having the proper, healthiest ingredients possible and making it yourself. And if you don't want it badly enough, you're not going to make it. You're like,
I love that. I'm writing
that
down. I am writing that down. I think
it's a great 30-day challenge for people. I challenge everybody watching to do the challenge.
Oh my gosh.
It's great because it just makes you think, right? It makes you think before you put something in your mouth. Well, I didn't grow that parsley, but it's a whole food, so it's allowed, right? You can get it from the grocery store. If you can grow it in your garden, you are 10 steps ahead. But if you have to get it from a store, that's fine, but it can't be canned. It can't be, there's no processing allowed, right? Before you get it. So if you want to make, I don't know, tortillas, then you have to do it from scratch. You have to, whatever you're going to make, whatever you're going to ingest for that month, that has to be something that you really want.
I love this. I love this. I'm going to start to prepare. Okay, so, but almond flour that's already ground, is that okay? Or do I need to grind my own almonds?
Well, you could grind your own. If you really want to be hardcore about it, you could grind your own. Right?
I think I'm just going to go.
Time.
Not that I have a lot of
small
things
allowances. I mean, that's really just almonds ground up.
Yes.
Right? So as long as you're okay with the source of that, then I always say to people, you should check your sources. Yes. You should, do a little research. That's important. One of the main things you should be taking in and really knowing what's in it is your water. You should be drinking lots of water every day. I wrote out, after we talked quickly, a whole list of that perfect day. I don't think we'll get into it because we don't have enough time this time, but we can do that another time. But it's in depth in itself, right? So, but one of the things that I talk about is water. Like, and people think, oh, I pee too much when I drink so much. But first of all, maybe you're not doing it right. If you're drinking, try drinking a cup every half hour. So put a timer on your watch or on your phone or on whatever you have. Every half hour, drink 1 cup of water. But the water needs to be good too, right? Otherwise you're just adding complications to your body. If it's got lots of chlorine and fluoride
Right.
and other contaminants, then you're not helping your system. But to properly hydrate, we're quite dehydrated. And even just the process of thinking we're hungry one day, often it's, or one moment, it's a thirst, and we're placating it with food instead of first trying a drink.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's
So really hydrating well is a small, it's insignificant seeming factor, but it's so important for everything, for your digestion, for your lymphatic flow. Like, we have two systems in our body. Realistically, we have blood and lymph. Blood nourishes everything. Blood is pumped all through our bodies with our magnificent heart every minute of the day. It does so much work for us. And then to give every cell what it needs, and this was an example I had, you can eat things like sprouts, right? So these are lovely sweet pea sprouts. You can make things like sprouts from lentils. Easy to do, easy to start learning about. We have bits in our membership about learning to do all this kind of stuff. But adding these simple kind of nourishing things to our body, then the blood can push that to every cell in our body, and we're energized, right? We have everything we need. But and then the lymph, talking about the two fluids, the lymph is the system that pulls it away. So if we're not bouncing, if we're not doing regular lymph drainage in some way, which is against gravity, and the opposite, the legs have to be up for it to come the opposite way, right? Putting your legs up against a wall once a day, amazing for your lower extremities, to get that lymph flowing from the feet and legs back up to the heart, so it can go through the system and you can pee it out, or the other. So it's super important to get both of those systems strong and moving effectively, and that helps with everything else in the body.
You're a wonder. You're an absolute wonder. You're an art. I don't know. I have to find a new phrase or way to describe you. You're I don't know. You're an artist. You're an artist.
Thank you.
Of how
Very
you
kind of you.
describe this is it's so engaging, and it's for me, it's very easy to grasp. I mean, it's so much information. I will listen to this like a few times, even what you've just already described. So there's these things. So okay, so I'm going to break this down a little bit. Okay, so let's start with water.
Yeah.
So water for a person who can't afford a fancy dancy filtration system, what are some of the ways they might do that?
Okay, well,
Like,
simple filtering.
Is a Brita good enough to start?
A Brita is something.
Right.
Usually it's already in plastic, so that's not my favorite option, because
Right.
plastic is a carcinogen in itself. It's a petroleum product ultimately, right? So it's not my favorite thing, but it's, if that's where you can start, then I'm sure you're doing better than not, right? So it's got a charcoal based filter. It does a lot of things. If you stand in your water before you drink it, will at least let some of the chlorine evaporate as well. Fluoride is a different beast, and we should just get that out there. If they are so concerned about our teeth as the fluoride needing element, you can do that. It's all in the toothpaste anyway, so why are we putting it throughout our body? So get out to your cities and complain, because quite frankly, we shouldn't be putting that through our bodies. So that's all I can suggest for that. From a financial perspective, do your part in trying to get that eliminated. There are springs, though. There is actually a website for Canada as well. Gosh, if I could remember what it was, try and Google it. Maybe we can find it and put it in the notes at the bottom. But you can locate local springs to you. So if that's an option, maybe you can take bottles with you. Maybe you can carpool to a local spring and fill your water that way, and just make sure that it's not polluted in some way, and drink spring water. Like, that's the most perfectly designed water anyway, right? So it's going to have trickled down a mountain or be bouncing on a river, and then the chemistry of the water, there's actually many different ways that water can be formed. And I know it's H2O, but it's kind of not. Like there's different, like it can be evaporated, right? It can be mist, it can be steam, it can be frozen, it can be liquid. There's other ones that aren't in the mainstream ways to have it chemically. Anyway, it goes into lots of depth about all that
No,
stuff.
that's great. So I'm going to say for listeners, if money's an issue, you can at least start with a Brita.
That's right.
So,
And we can
I know
all
there's
burn
better
wood.
ways,
If it's
but there's
clean wood to make charcoal. You can, look it up. There's ways to actually filter your own sort of water if you want to do an extra filtering. If you can't do a Brita, there's ways to do it that way too. Maybe look up some survivalist ways, because that's where it all stems
yeah.
from, right? So putting it in sunshine after it's filtered, that will help charge it as well. You know, there's lots of studies. There's a Japanese scientist who did lots of studies, Kyoko, I think his name is. But look up Japanese scientist water studies or structure. That will give you lots of information on structuring your water too. So you could actually intentionally bless your water, talk to your water.
Oh, Masoto.
Tell it to be healthy for you. Same with food. I think that's where prayer came from. You know, we used to say a prayer before we ate, right? And maybe that's giving good frequency to the foods before we eat, and telling our bodies at the same time, okay, now we're going to be ingesting food, because it's not just what you're eating, it's how you digest it, right? You are what you eat, but more importantly, you are how you process or digest that food that you take in. And of course, what you're putting in is super, super important. So
wow,
take those steps. It's easy to take the steps. You might be in a certain spot where it's hard because you've put yourself in a hole from decades of doing things that you maybe should have done differently. So you have to get out of that hole slowly. And that's where people get frustrated, because it takes time. Your body can do everything it needs to do, but it's going to take time. You didn't get into that that predicament in a day. So it's not going to resolve itself quickly either. You have to be consciously taking the steps and watching how your body's reacting to it. Sometimes you have to pull back your detoxing and then go forward in little steps, right? Because you can have Herxheimer's reactions or detoxing reactions from too much toxins leaving the body. Fat on our bodies is partly there for the purpose of enveloping toxins. So it's not just you necessarily consuming too much or not moving enough. It's the body's way of wrapping a toxin. So maybe it's fluoride, maybe it's maybe it's lead, maybe it's something else in your body that's come in somehow, and your body's wrapping it to protect itself. The body's always doing things to help it, always doing things to help itself. So you just have to understand, well, what does that mean? And how do it's you being conscious of what your body's doing and the signs your body's giving you. Do you understand? Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense to me.
Even edema. So when you're carrying water, you're like, oh, it's like my ankles, I have cankles, I have whatever. That is lymph. That's extra water in your body that your body, there's the only two ways it can deal with toxins that it can't get out quickly enough. It mitigates the toxicity by adding water, by keeping water in this case, because it needs to make it less toxic. So how do you make lemon juice less strong? You add some water, right? As you add more water, it's less tart, less acidic, right? Tasting, because you're making the volume greater around it. That's what holding the water in your body is. And that's the other way, is the compacting fat around a particular toxin molecule, because the body is trying to do the best thing for itself. So many things that are fascinating if you go back to basics, but it does take time. It's a process. Again, you didn't get there in a day. To backtrack and get back to good health, it's going to be a journey. And that's that's what it should be. That's again, you're going to be learning so much about your body. You just have to be aware and be willing.
Wow. I have learned more in the last 27 minutes. You're, my gosh, you're good at what you do, and your passion for it, and you have made.
That's when I get red. That's when I'm like, blah, 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 blah.
No, it's awesome, and what I'm thinking about right now, it's just, it's a lot of information, and there's
Yes.
and you broke it down in a way that, for me anyways, is quite simple to process. Some things that I already knew, but I think I understand them at a deeper level right now. And I'm in the midst of struggling around weight and clean. I've always eaten quite clean, but with periods of insanity.
Sure.
You know,
That's human.
yeah, and this is just this 30-day challenge. I don't know when. I might do it for my birthday month, which is September. I'm going to decide when I'm going to do it, but I love it, and I'm going to invite other people to get on board with me. I love
maybe start now. Just do a week, and then maybe next month do 2 weeks, and then maybe the month after you do just add a week until you get to that 4-week month, and then go,
oh my
man,
gosh,
is this working for me? Do I feel better? Do I notice anything? You know what I mean? But one thing I want to also hit home is how you're eating. So again, we need to do this day where we talk about our perfect day, because there's lots of great tips in there. Or you can join the membership, because there's lots of great tips in there.
That's right.
But,
both are true.
Yeah. But if you're eating something, again, give it your conscious effort. Chew it properly. Make sure it has lots of nutritional quality in there, and you can't go wrong. I mean, you might have to backtrack a little, because your body might be like, oh, I can't take so much raw food, perhaps, if you're doing lots of raw food or whatever it is for you. But you have to be conscious of how you're handling it at the time, and don't just say, oh, I tried that once, I can't do that. That's bull malarkey. You need to go back and revisit it and just take it in steps. You might have done it too fast. You might be like me and just go all in, and maybe it was too much for your system because you haven't been regularly detoxing your liver. You know how much work your liver does for your body? Honest to God, you need to love your liver more often. We need to be regularly loving our liver.
Love you.
Right? Giving it the proper time to recover. People eat late at night. They never give your body the chance to do the repair that it needs to do, because it's always digesting. Stop eating so much. Give your body, try and eat for a week. Eat at 5 o'clock, like some older people. Eat at 5 o'clock at the latest. Maybe eat at 3:30 one day. Try that. And eat a really big breakfast and a lighter evening meal, like that 5 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whatever window you're doing. Eat a slightly lighter meal. Keep your drinking, right? Your water afterwards, so you can still drink, but try not to eat. And so you're going to bed with fully digested stomach. Now your body has 8 hours, or whatever your sleeping pattern is. It has time to repair. Because if we're always throwing food in our hole, we have no time for our body to do what we need it to do to nourish and repair the cells that need to be kicked out or chewed up, or like all of these things. These are simple processes that happened through. And you know what? I also feel like, I'm just babbling, sorry. I feel like in these certain religions, well, probably in every religion, I'm just not attuned to every religion. I'm not, I don't have enough time to look into every religion, but they all had periods of fasting in it, right?
Yeah.
So the different religions have, and they're different time spans, but some of them go 30, 40 days, which they maybe sun up to sunrise, for example. Or we had our in Christian terms, you do Lent, but Lent used to be a bit more strict than, I'm giving up chocolate or chips or something. So they used to do periods where they wouldn't eat a lot more things, or they would only eat one thing. That is a form of fasting. So again, you're allowing your body a chunk of time that gives it that ability to repair itself that we no longer do, because we're just always, we got to eat 7 meals a day, and we've got to, I don't know. So I just think some things are lost. Do some research. I don't like to tell people what to do. I like to give you a thought bubble and go, maybe that'll work for you. I think you should try different things and revisit them. If they didn't work once, it doesn't mean it won't work in the future when you're a little bit healthier, or when, people say, I can't eat vegetables, or I can't eat this kind of vegetable, or people who have allergies. I feel like a lot of allergies come from the fact that we have a lot of gut dysbiosis, and we also have liver misfunction. So it's not able to properly get rid of these toxins. And so they build up, or the gut dysbiosis, they're going into the places in our bodies they shouldn't be. And so it's reacting.
Yes.
And so we need to step back, do a lot of things to get that gut and that liver repaired properly so that they can function properly, and allergies will go away.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe we have to end here, because I'm just I'm a person with a lot of allergies, and know I have a leaky gut, and I'm working on them. So I'm like,
amazing. Good for you.
You are preaching
That's
to
the
the
first
quiet,
step.
sister. I love it. Oh my gosh, Melanie, you are a force. Oh my gosh, you are an absolute force. I'm going to be processing this for a while. I'm going to be listening to this a few times over. I so wish that I didn't have to end here today. I wish that I could magically make time do a different thing. But thank you
My pleasure.
for sharing even just a snippet of some of your wisdoms. This is a lot, man. You're awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, I hope it helps people. I just think that we've lost our way in some of these things, and we just have to go back to basics.
Yeah.
Make it simple.
Yeah.
Why is it so hard? Why do we stress about all these things?
Yeah.
Go back to the basics.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you so much. And for our listeners, wow, we've got a lot to chew on today. Pardon the pun.
And I would love to have them join our mailing list as well. Go to powerandaging.com, take a look around, join the mailing list. I think it's at the bottom. Because we have free speakers every month as well. And there's lots of information that's amazing. Awesome. And we'll hopefully have you on as well.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Well,
Excellent.
Thanks so much, Melanie. And to our listeners, thanks so much for hanging with us today. And do remember to find your joy. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you found a piece of your joy in this episode, I would love to hear about what came up for you, so that we can continue to grow the impact of this show. Thanks again. See you soon. And remember, find your joy.